You had your chance and then you blew it.
That is the most absurd statement of the year.
Nice. Nice.
Oh, baby.
I'm in my zone, I'm feeling it.
Live from Rock Solid Studios in Granite Falls, it's time for MinneZona Sports, live with DJ Matty C and Paul the Shield Vold.
And this is MinneZona Sports Live. We are back. Yes, episode 99. We are one away from episode 100. And without further ado, I'm your host, DJ Matty C, a.k.a. Matt Callahan, a.k.a. Callie, a.k.a. Matty C, etc., etc., etc. And all the way from Woods and Shore Studios in Aiken, Minnesota, Skype decided to be a pain in the ass today. So we have Voldy via telephone today. Voldy, how's it going besides the technical problems here?
Well, it's going all right, I guess, considering the fact that one of those cartoon Acme anvils hasn't fallen on my head yet is, par for the course, I guess. But you know what? Could be worse, I guess.
It could be. It definitely could be. But we're making do here, and we always have the backup plan. So that's kind of a nice thing to have. But at the same time, Skype, get your you-know-what together. That's all I gotta say. Get your you-know-what together, and we'll have some angry letters and whatnot. So, without further ado, we're talking a lot of Minnesota stuff today. Tater Tot hot take. We're talking about the Wild. Things have kind of cooled off a little bit. Voldy and the Zoners. I guess I'm not sure how that I'm not sure how this will go, but we're gonna cover it. We'll let you know. We'll give you our thoughts. But a team that is playing pretty well is the Minnesota Timberwolves. Wow, the howl is getting going. But our guy Ant is struggling a little bit, Voldy. But we'll get to that in a little bit. Callahan School of Logic. Obviously, we got some interesting things going on with the fallout between KirkCousins and Coach Zim. A lot to talk about there, folks. A lot to talk about there. So we're gonna get to it. So Voldy, Zoners, let's get it going with some Tater Tot. Hot take.
Fresh out of the oven, it's Tater Tot Hot Take.
All right, we are back with some Tater Tot hot take. And, we're starting off tonight with the Minnesota Wild. Obviously, you can see the Kaprizov jersey that I have tonight. But we got a lot going on with the Minnesota Wild. Voldy, unfortunately, the Wild lost last night to the Calgary Flames. Something that we didn't want to see, obviously, but it is what it is. They haven't done well against the Flames, Voldy. Just kind of basing off that loss against Calgary. I mean, are things starting to get a little dicey with the Wild now? Or, I mean, is their luck starting to wear out? What do you think?
I really hope it isn't, but if we know anything about Minnesota sports, this is the beginning of the end. I really just hope that it isn't and things are going to change. Look, playing the same team twice and, obviously in a home and home twice in 3 nights, and especially after you got shellacked 7-0 the night before or 2 nights before when you lose at home 5-1, that hurts a little bit to now making it 4 straight losses, and, that's tough. It's been a tough stretch for them. It's unfortunate because there's a lot of areas that have been a little bit troublesome to put, one finger on. You got to put all 10 fingers on something, and unfortunately, there's a lot of holes right now for the Wild, and it just seems that they're kind of losing a little bit of their spark a little bit, and now the second half of the season has just been a struggle.
Yeah, it has been a struggle, and I think, one thing that I want to bring up with this team is that I don't think it's time to panic. I just think it's time to, get back to what you did best, and that was getting those guys that we don't really, talk about as much, like the guys that are on the bench that really don't, play as much. Because we can't always rely on, Kaprizov's going to get us a goal. Zuccarello's going to get in there. We need guys like, Jewel, Eriksson Ek, he needs to get going. Jordan Greenway, I think, is another guy, too, that hasn't been good as of late. And we need to get some life here. And I think we expected them to come out with some fire. This game after losing to Calgary again. And granted, Calgary's a very good team. Let's not forget that. They're a very good team. But now that they've lost 4 straight, we got to remember, hey, this is something that we can't put aside. And, we can't always rely on Kaprizov because he might have a bad night or Zuccarello might have a bad night. I mean, that we can't always rely on that line. But Foligno, I think, has been playing better. I just think they need some leadership to come through here and get these guys going. So we'll keep our fingers crossed that the Wild can bounce back. But it's... I'm not overly concerned, but if this turns out to be a double-digit losing streak, like 10 games or so, yeah, we might want to throw the red flag, and hopefully we can get going. But we haven't heard much from Boldy either, so it's been a rough patch, I think. But I think they can get over it. It's there's momentum swings, and right now they're not on the good end of it. So we're hoping that they can get going here. So Voldy, if you look at this game, and obviously both teams definitely playoff teams, Calgary definitely being the better team in this one. You would say probably this is a wake-up call for the Wild to get going here. Wouldn't you agree?
So too, I kind of see Calgary as a team that's on the up and up as of late, and they've got a few pieces here in the future that they're definitely going to be contending with. Obviously, they got one of the Kachuk boys as well. They've got a little bit of grit. They've got a little angst on their sides. Christopher Tanev is a guy that's definitely going to be eyes on as well. They've got a few guys in net. Jacob Markstrom as well has filled in nicely this season for them for a team that's trying to find an identity. And they took it to the Wild the last couple of nights, so they're definitely on the brighter side of things. I mean, they do have Johnny Gaudreau still there, Tyler Toffoli. If that doesn't start turning things around for the Wild, especially with the trade deadline looming, that's definitely going to be something that is going to be a lot of eyes open. If they don't turn around now, they might as well just pack it in for the season.
Yeah, it's the right way to go about it, and I think goaltending's kind of a big thing too. I mean, I feel like Callahan and Talbot have to step up their game too. So I mean, it has to start with everybody, and to get out of a rut, you got to start having guys step up. So couldn't agree with you more, Voldy. All right, so this question kind of pertains between what's going on in the world right now. And obviously, there are a lot of Russian hockey players in the NHL, Voldy, especially with Kirill Kaprizov. We all know, everyone's pretty much seen the news with Russia, Ukraine, Russia trying to take over Ukraine there, and the NHL. And I'm so glad that the NHL is taking note of this, because they're concerned about the well-being of the Russian players. And I think there's more than 50 Russians playing in the NHL. And then here's the quote that the NHL has here. We remain concerned about the well-being of the players from Russia who play in the NHL on behalf of their NHL clubs and not on behalf of Russia. We understand they and their families are being placed in an extremely difficult position. And I couldn't agree more with that, and especially with Kaprizov and Kulikov too. Another guy that's plays for the Wild here. With all this going on, I mean, do you think that the NHL is going to have? I mean, I know that you would think that every team would have a therapist or something like that to talk about things, and seeing stuff about people like on social media and whatnot, and what's going on with Russia. And none of those. I don't think any of those players are proud of what's going on right now over there. But Voldy, do you think that they're going to take more action here to bring in therapists or have them call their families and things like that? What do you think?
I think the initiative just to say that there is an issue in the first place, and obviously know that the league is standing by their players to begin with, and saying that they support them no matter what, and given the situation that they have no control over, it's not like it was their decision to go invade the Ukraine to begin with.
Right.
I mean, they're just guys over here trying to provide for their family back home, and it just so ends up a political situation ends up being front page news, and people are dying left and right because of it. I would certainly hope that the league would take all the necessary measures to protect their players, and not just because of the fact that a lot of these Russian players are top players and put a lot of money in the pockets of owners and the revenue and ticket sales and everything, because they're just human beings to begin with. I would certainly hope that the NHL would put their best foot forward to make sure that support is there no matter what throughout the rest of the year, and given the current climate of the world too.
And another thing to add into this, and the NHL has been very involved in providing additional security for Russian players who have been subjected to threats in the wake of Putin's war against Ukraine. So it's they're making note of it, and I think I would doubt anybody from like a MinnesotaWild, unless they're completely unhinged or something like that, that would be saying screw you, Kaprizov, this and that, saying just these terrible things. But not just him, but guys that don't play as much want to make sure there's extra security around, and making sure that no one gets any ideas or says things that that are hurtful, and we don't want that to happen and whatnot. So I'm glad the NHL is taking a look at this, because right now it's a very tough time, especially in Europe. So Just wanted to throw that in there too, just to because it's a big thing that we need to talk about, and they're just to they're not alone in this fight, and everyone around the country is I think everyone has the Ukraine support right now, and hopefully they can come to a peaceful resolution. So, all right, let's move on to the Wolves. The Wolves are surging, Voldy. Who would have thunk? With this team, we did say before the season, we talked with Munson here too, is that we thought that this might be a playoff team, and they've proven it, man. They've proven it. So it's nice to see that they've been able to overcome a lot of these trials and tribulations. But Voldy, it's looking more and more like they're gonna make this make the playoffs here. So Voldy, I mean, are we starting to turn this thing around? Is this something that we can't just say, oh, it's just the Wolves, get rid of this team? What do you think?
I mean, I wouldn't certainly say that they're on the right track. I wouldn't say they're not on the right track, but they're certainly getting there because, I've been mentioning, or at least I've kept in the back of my mind, that the way that the Timberwolves have been the last couple of years, especially with D'Angelo in the fold and having Cat, not be the only threat to score now for the Timberwolves, because when he was the only guy, obviously that did weigh on him. And, as soon as teams shut him down, that was it. They were going to win by 30 points easily against the Timberwolves. But now having him and also D'Angelo and also Ant blossoming in his sophomore season, it's getting things in the right order. And I've also said, too, give a head coach a full off season, because Chris Finch came in at the middle of the year last year, so he was working with another coach's team and not knowing what the full extent of their abilities and learning on the fly. Now had a full off season to work with, implement some new things, his style of play, and now we're starting to see some of the early dividends of it as well. Is this a playoff team? The way the NBA is looking right now, if they get into the playoffs before the Lakers do, that's going to be a shock in my mind. And I would not be surprised by that altogether. I think they're starting to turn it around, I think.
Yeah, and I would like to think that, and I'm glad that you mentioned the Lakers because, man, what a train wreck that's been. And if you're a LeBron hater, you're just loving this right about now. Whereas there's some people that feel bad for it, and I do feel bad for them. But then again, the Lakers needed to make the right moves, and I think that Russell Westbrook trade was awful. So there's your answer right there with that. Let's circle back here to a team that's probably going to make the playoffs, which is kind of weird to say. The Wolves, man. I mean, they lose to the 76ers the other night, Voldy, and you're going up against, the debut, I should say, of James Harden, and then Joel Embiid. I mean, they dominated it, but after that game, they take on Cleveland, and Cleveland, they're still working on rebuilding and whatnot, but the Wolves come out with the victory, late game heroics from Karl Anthony Towns. So there's that to be factored in. And then, obviously, last night, they beat the Golden State Warriors, one of the best teams in the NBA. They've lost four of their last five or something like that, Golden State has, and, we've been taking advantage of that. So it's looking more and more like the Wolves are going to be able to make the playoffs. But I think we're kind of putting it tongue-in-cheek because a lot can happen between now and then. So I think they'll be able to. I think if they're able to beat the good teams like Golden State and whatnot, and then be able to kind of maybe if they get out of the first round, I'd consider that a success in general. But we'll see. I mean, there's a lot of basketball left to be played. So, speaking of which, it's been kind of a tough go for Ant. You mentioned Ant before. Voldy, he's only shooting 21% from from the field, and then 9% from 3-point range. So things haven't been great. But Ant said, "I'm just out here thinking too much. I'm just gonna go out there and not think about anything." So basically, he's thinking too much, maybe forcing a lot on himself. And I think that Finch has kind of noticed that and just told him to go play. So, Voldy, do you think that, I'm hopeful he'll get out of the slump and whatnot, but, do you agree? Is he thinking too much?
I definitely think at this point now it could be a factor in him thinking a little bit too much just because of the fact that, that the Wolves are in a position where they could go on a run, get into the postseason, and maybe win a couple of games or maybe even a series too. But I think now in his sophomore season, I think he's looking at things that, if he wants to make that jump, he's going to have to do a whole lot more. But I think that's definitely a big factor, only 21% from the field. And, if this was a month ago, I'd say, it's still a good handful of the season left. There isn't really much at all to worry about. But now as we get in the later half of this season, too, some of these games are getting a little bit more and more important, too, and especially when the Timberwolves have been playing the way that they have, and they're going to start getting a little bit more attention, or at least I would certainly hope, when they play some of these matchups against some of these teams that I think it could be something to look at as we get closer towards the end of the year. If things don't start turning around for Ant, this might be a little bit more troublesome for the Timberwolves.
Yeah, it definitely could be. And I think the one guy that's been playing really well has been Karl Anthony Towns. And now, I think you mentioned this too, is that he had a lot on his shoulders when it came to this team before, when he first got here. We relied on him a lot, and we've relied on him, when Jimmy and Wiggins and whatnot, but you couldn't always rely on Wiggins, but Cat's kind of been carrying the load, and I think that's okay sometimes. You can have Cat carry the load a little bit, but you can't have him carry everything. You can't have him just be, okay, we're going to Cat all the time. Yeah, we want to get it down low. Yeah, we want to get it to D-low, on the, for an outside shot. But this team has grit, man. They have grit, and I've been really liking what I've been seeing. They've been pretty good defensively, which is something that we kept preaching, is that they needed that. After that 76ers game, they gave up 142 points, but I think the next game, it was about 120 or so that drops down a little bit with 40. And then last night, they held the Golden State Warriors to 114. Let's go. Okay, that's good. We're happy about that. We like that. So, Ant, I think, is going to get back on track. Everyone has a cold streak. Okay, everybody has a cold streak. Perfect example, Skype. You, my friend, are having a cold streak on your BS. You need to get back going, but you got to do it a little faster than Ant does. We're giving Ant some time. That's a different story.
Yeah, I know.
we both are in agreement on that, but no, I think Ant's gonna be able to figure it out, and I'm kind of excited to see what they do in the playoffs. I really am, and we'll probably have Munson on here soon. He'll probably gloat and say how great they've been and whatnot. But ever since Rubio left, it seems like things have been going pretty well. Sorry, Munson. No, I'm just kidding. All right, so anyway, that'll do it for Tater Hot Take this week. All right, Voldy. There's been a lot of chatter on the socials medias. At first, I was going to do Infinity Ranks. We haven't done that in a while. But we're doing Callahan School of Logic because I saw some things on the Twitter sphere, on the Facebooks, the socials medias, we should say. And there's been a lot of talk about our guy, KirkCousins, and our guy, MikeZimmer. And if you saw our socials media's post this week, or just recently, I should say, it's fight night. It's fight night. Zim versus Kirky School of Logic. But I have a couple things that I want to address with this too. So it's time to sit down in the class, get your pens, get your pencils, whatever you got, grab a notepad. It's time for Callahan School of Logic.
Class is in session. You're enrolled in Callahan's School of Logic.
All right, it is time for Callahan School of Logic. Like I said, grab your pens, pencils, notepads, all that stuff. All right, so if you've been following the socials medias, there was a report recently from Chad Graff, and a guy that's, I'd say is a reliable source. He seems to have a lot of breaking news with the Vikings on Twitter and all around. So, the report said, let's start out with what the report said. Zimmer, and this is Zimmer talking, or just saying what Kirk doesn't do well, things like that. Zimmer complained openly in coaching meetings about Cousins, and some of Zimmer's top lieutenants echoed the sentiment. Zimmer didn't feel the quarterback made enough winning plays, that he didn't make the necessary shots to help lead the Vikings to victory, that he didn't elevate his teammates. That's interesting. So, that comes out, and they said that, and it also says that Cousins said that he was too aggressive at times in the Vikings' 34-31 win over the Packers. Zimmer disagreed with his quarterback's assessment and implored Cousins to continue to look down the field. I want Kirk to keep doing it like he's doing it. He can't second guess himself. If he throws an interception, that's life, but you keep going for the jugular. It's going to open up in other areas in the run game. It is going to open up other players. Okay. So let's bring up one thing here. If you watch this past season, and if you made a assumption that Kirk Cousins was the problem with this team this season, you're on something. I don't know what you're on, but you're on something, okay? Because that couldn't be further from the truth. Now, let me get into this. The disconnect between Kirk and Zim, I mean, we know about it. It's been a problem for a while, people. And it never got any better. And it's true. I think Zimmer tried to connect at times, but I don't think he did it the way that some people would react to it, being like, oh, he's just bashing me and things like that. Whereas he's just trying to help, or he just didn't go about it the right way. I don't know, and we don't know if these reports are for sure accurate. Okay, let's put it like that. I mean, this is kind of hearsay type of thing. But if it's let's just say these are accurate now, Voldy, Zoners. Maybe he does have a point. There are some things where, Kirk sometimes holds the ball too long, things like that. I think he's improved in that aspect, but I think he's right on some things. Not everything, but some things. But I come back to this all the time. If you're going to point the finger at somebody, whatever was wrong with his teams, it's not at Kirk Cousins. Look at his stats. That's all I have to say. I can read off all these stats to you and things like that. Kirk wasn't the problem. Kirk has contributed to some of the losses, sure. But not all of them. Okay? This is a team sport. Let's remember that. I keep saying that, but with all due respect to Zim, and this is I've always liked Zim, but in this situation, it's hard to defend him. It really is hard to defend him because I think Zim should be pointing the finger at himself. Here's a couple reasons why. Okay. remember that 2017 defense that we had, Voldy, Zoners? It's pretty good. You know, Kendricks, Xavier was having an incredible season. Xavier, I should say. And, Harry the Hitman, Daniil, Everson, Linval, you name it. They were playing out of their minds. Anthony Barr, throw that in there too. But after that NFC Championship game against the Eagles, we never stayed consistent with our defense. We never were the same after that. They've had some good games here and there, but it got progressively worse. And that's something we can't ignore with this team, okay? So let me bring up a couple. I'm going to go to stats here for a second. Ever since that 2017, we went 13-3. We're only giving up 20. Yeah, we're only giving up like 20. Only 15 points per game against with opponents. Okay. The next season we're giving up 21, so that's a big jump. Okay, that's still a big jump. 2019 we got a little bit better. Okay, we 18.9. We can't complain about that. Especially when you have the pieces that you had for that season too, which, you won a wild card game against the Aints, the hated Aints. Very good. The next season, not good. 29 points per game. That was about 30th or whatever, 27th or whatever you want to call it. But this past season, we're giving up 25 points per game. Now, let's not forget that, yes, there were injuries. Yes, there were... there was COVID and that, and I think the Wolves did give Zim a pass for the 2020 season with everything going on with that. But this past season, and we said this after that 2020 season, they got to make the playoffs or they're gone. And guess what? We were right. So that's Zim's responsibility to have this defense be elite. And he said, "I've never had a bad defense." Well, you did. You did in 2020. You did in 2021. You can blame you can blame the injuries. You can blame we didn't have enough money to go get guys. You have, no matter with what you have to make do with what you got. And he didn't. He said he didn't have bad defense. They went into this season, got some free agents, and guess what? It still didn't really make a difference. So, I had to throw, I hate to throw Zim under the bus on that, but it's true. You have to look at it from that side. And if you're going to blame Kirk for that, you can't. If the defense is giving up that many points and Kirk has to keep coming back with there had to have been a balance. There wasn't, okay? All right, so, like I've said, I have both respect for Zim and Kirk, okay? But why do we keep rehashing this? Okay? We get that things didn't end well with Zim, Cousins, or, I think there was something a little more, and Voldy, I think you could attest to this too, with that little shove after that Lions game, after that win, right? And as you can see here in the graphic, it seems like they're fired up after a win, but I think there was something behind it now because of some people were right on this too. And I didn't think it was anything. I just thought they were amped up, which they might have been. But let's not forget that it wasn't a perfect relationship. And, we had all the reports coming out and whatnot. But I feel like we've talked about this way too much. And I think we need to move on to our next thing, okay? And that is, the next regime. So let's stop rehashing this with Zimmer, what he did wrong, and this and that. Let's respect that this guy was our coach for 8 years, and he did everything in his power to get us to that point. Now, if I'm going to throw blame, I'd probably throw it at Zim's way, okay? Because I don't think he had issues with some people in the organization, and there was, some people didn't like that. and we needed a new voice for this team. So let's close the chapter on this and let's move on to the future with Notorious KOC and Kwesi. Okay? I'm feeling good about it. We'll see what happens. But I will say this. I still think we're still going to be talking about this, especially, down the road here, because let's not forget, we haven't heard from Zim whatsoever. The only person that has gone to bat for Zim, no offense to Zim, is his girlfriend. Is his very very attractive model girlfriend, Voldy, and we both know this too. If you've seen her on Twitter, she's Rip Spielman, saying that, oh, why wouldn't she talk to Zim, all this stuff. There's that. So there's two sides of this story. I want to hear Zim's side. Not saying I'm taking sides or whatnot, but I mean, I have to go to bat for Kirk here. Okay, I really do. But who cares? I don't care about who said, who didn't do this, who didn't do that, who did that. It's over. Let's move on. Okay, let's move on. We don't need to keep rehashing this with Zim and, not connecting with players, things like that. Okay, let's get to the logic in all this, okay? And then I'm going to pass it over to you, Voldy. Give me your thoughts. The logic is we need to move on, and we got to move on from this whole predicament, okay? We just need to say, okay, it happened. It's over. Let's stop saying, well, Zim didn't do this. You didn't do that. We got it. Let's look to the future. We got the Combine. Kwesi, Notorious KOC. They're going to be looking for some guys. Now, they have to prove themselves now. Don't get me wrong. But let's stop rehashing this, guys. I mean, it's not going to get us anywhere. It's not going to get us anywhere. And if it was that bad, then it was that bad. Who cares? We're moving on. We're moving forward. Let's put our faith in the guys that we hired and what type of team will be in the future. And the future does look bright. I mean, the roster's good. We've got some talented guys here, okay? We haven't even gotten to free agency yet, for goodness sake. So there's that as well. But, so that's the logic on this. Let's move on. Let's move on from the Zim and Kirk situation and what Zim didn't do in his tenure towards the end. So, yeah. Voldy, your thoughts, my friend.
Yeah, just looking at the whole, obviously putting to bed, hopefully, the whole Zim and Kirk dilemma as well. I just found it very interesting, early on, I think at, the beginning of the year, I think it was, the headline was that Zim and Kirk didn't even meet on a regular basis ever.
Right.
In the same quarterback room or, in the same room ever for, meetings. Because I feel like even if you were a defensive-minded coach to begin with, but, look at some of the other defensive-minded coaches as well. Tony Dungy, the likes of Mike Tomlin. Tomlin was a defensive guy too. They all met with their quarterbacks on a regular basis. Bill Belichick is as defensive minded as it gets, and him and Tom Brady were in the same room, if not every day, at least a couple of times, were multiple times a day, a week, in some regards as well, depending on the matchup too. And I just found it very interesting that there was such a disconnect between Kirk and also with Zim too, that no wonder that the struggles were starting to rear their ugly head in the later half of the tenure for Zimmer as well. Obviously, 2017, the year that was for this group, I mean, it was, Kirk wasn't here, but that whole group together was something to behold all within itself. And then as this, as we start to look at it now from a distance, and now that Zimmer has left the franchise altogether, you start looking at it as that was a fall from grace for multiple people too, but for anyone that was putting up the fact that it was Kirk's fault for a lot of the stuff here this season, I don't know what else he could have done.
Yeah.
Short of throwing 50 touchdowns, no interceptions, running running for 300 yards a game to get the team into the Super Bowl and win, I feel like people still would have blamed Kirk for even a bad season altogether if they would have put up, a 13-3 year and, would have made it to the NFC Championship game and lost. Gee, that sounds pretty familiar, too, to begin with 2017 all over again as well.
Yeah.
But, again, people are always going to look for the scapegoat, and unfortunately, this has been Kirk Cousins' cross to bear in this one, just because the fact that it's just been, a crutch for people to go to altogether. And, at the end of the day, Zimmer's gone, Kirk is still here, new head coach, new GM. We haven't even mentioned the fact of any talk about Spielman and that whole
that too.
But I guess no news is good news in that regard, just because of the fact that I haven't really heard or seen anything about Spielman altogether. But it's just you got to put it all to bed, and the fact that people are still, and we're starting to get all these reports too about how Zimmer was bad mouthing Cousins altogether. It's just like, man, maybe we shouldn't have put ourselves in that situation to begin with, and it's just very interesting to see how it's all came to be as of late.
Right, and you make a good point here too, especially if what he said about Kirk, especially to his to his coaches, his staff, saying he doesn't do this. It's like, then why are you? Why aren't you trying to help him get better? And why are you, saying all this stuff? I think, to be completely honest, I think Zim needs to come out and say something. I really do. And, I don't want to say, well, I will believe everything that he says, because I think some of that's true. I really do. I think some of that, with Kirk and with Zim, I think that's true. But let's... Yeah, like you said, with Spielman, I mean, Spielman, he's been on, he was on the Herd recently. He was on with Paul Allen the other day. I think it was Monday. Yeah, Monday. And, I was curious. I don't think they even brought up Zim or anything like that. But, there's some, I still think there's some bad blood between the two right now, still. And I mean, well, you can just ask Zim's girlfriend. But like I said, that situation, and then it sounded like he wasn't a big fan of Kirk, or signing Kirk for one, and how much money he wanted, all that stuff, and you can make your arguments for that, but it comes down to us putting the pieces around him to make us, play, be a contender, and we didn't do that with that regime. It is what it is. So let's move on. Let's go. Let's get going with Kwesi and Notorious KOC. I don't know if he likes that name, but we'll check in on that. We'll figure that out.
Yeah, he'll learn to like it.
He'll learn to like it, exactly. So, all right, that'll do it for Callahan School of Logic. Let us know in the comments what you guys think too. If if you think I'm just complete everything I said was BS, or you don't agree with what I said, well, let us know. We'd be happy to put it on here and chat with you. So, all right, let's move on to Absurd or Approved. The first one, Voldy, I think this one's perfect. It references the MLB and whatnot, but we'll get more into that. Yeah, I'm going to let you do your spiel with ARA, but we got that. XFL, NFL, USFL, all the FLs coming through. JuwanHoward, that whole ordeal, and then the agents to boycott the NFLCombine. Ooh, interesting. All right, let's get it going with some approved.
It's time for everyone's favorite segment, Absurd or Approved.
All right, let's get it going with some Absurd or Approved. So, Voldy, why don't you rattle them off for us, please?
Well, no news that anybody wanted to hear out of yesterday. Major League Baseball has canceled opening day. Rob Manfred announced announcing on Tuesday that the sport will for the first time in 27 years, and that means that the potential first games won't happen until April 6th at the very earliest, as the first two series for all 30 teams have been canceled, cutting the likelihood down to 156 games at most, with a total of 91 games being erased in those first two series of the regular season. Of course, the continuing struggle of which the collective bargaining agreement, which expired on December 1st, meaning that the players and also the owners still at a rapid decline when it takes to coming up with a decision to host a collective bargaining session that would be successful, in fact of which they met on Monday for 16 and a half hours, and they did not even come up with the best and final offer on Tuesday, the 9th straight day of negotiations, which still led to both sides coming out on the losing end. At the end of the day, no baseball as of the start of their regularly scheduled opening day, which was set to be on March 31st. So looking at the situation overall, absurd or approved with the cancellation of the first two series, is this just a precursor of getting more games canceled? And when will baseball begin?
Wow, you put it all out there. I like it. Well, first of all, I think it's absurd. You hired a mediator. You were in, like you said, you were in deliberations for 16 hours and you didn't come up with anything. Something's got to give here. Now, you can point the finger at the players, you can point the finger at the owners and things like that. They don't like what they have, they don't like the deals that they've put out, and X, Y, and Z. I mean, everything under the sun. Okay, and there was a time where they were about to accept. So I think the MLBPA was going to accept something or whatever, but then all of a sudden they turned it down because the owners added something in there. Well, it's Manfred. He's sitting there laughing. I don't know if you saw that too, Voldy.
I saw it.
Oh yeah, I'm glad you did because I mean, we got to get this guy out. I mean, it's just this clown is just this guy's something else here. But he's saying my deepest hope is we get an agreement quickly. I'm really disappointed we didn't make an agreement. Well, you're the commissioner, bud. You're supposed to figure this out with the players. You have to be willing to work with the players, the guys that are going out there and playing, okay? And the fact that you guys can't come up with a deal is just utterly ridiculous. Just ridiculous beyond belief. The players want to play, and, I understand, some people, the younger generation and whatnot is kind of like, oh, well, it doesn't matter, because it's baseball, blah, blah. But it's like, well, some people want to see it too. I mean, this is something that's terrible. You want them to start on opening day. You want to see them play. And the fact that they're not able to come to an agreement is disappointing. I mean, it's disappointing. Manfred, I don't want to put the full blame on the players because I think a lot of it is the owners too. I wouldn't surprise me if the Twins and the Pohlads were holding this up, but that's just me. Who knows? But it's disappointing. I think Marcus Stroman even said Manfred got to go, which I think you and I would agree with too. So I would, to answer your question for the ARA, Voldy, it's absurd. Do I think there's going to be more do we think that there's going to be more games canceled? Yeah, I believe it. Because if they've gotten to this point, who's to say that they won't cancel more? And when is baseball going to begin? Hell if I know, Voldy. Hell if I know, zoners. We have no gosh darn clue. So, yeah, I mean, it's absurd, but if I were to guess, I'll put a date out there, and if it goes, it goes. Let's just say April 15th. Let's go with that. I don't know. Let's go April 15th. So that's my guess. Voldy, what do you got?
Look at this rate. There's no way baseball's going to start before June 1st, and that's when they're going to have to cancel the whole season. I think at this point, both sides would rather fall into the fire than save the other guy from falling in as well. Just because, look, everybody wants to hold on to the purse strings as much as possible. Yes, we all know that the players want to play. The owners, I don't know what the owners want, honestly. Do they just want, if it was as simple, if they want the money, then we know. They want the money, the players want to play. But the players also want more money because of the fact that a lot of times some of these guys don't exactly get all the money that they need. And in the back half of their careers and maybe post-baseball career, that things don't exactly pan out all that well for them financially or just responsibly to begin with as well. So, I mean, I'm looking at a situation, it's completely absurd the fact that we're even talking about canceling more games. If I had to put a hard date on it, I would probably say baseball, April 15th would probably be it. And that'd probably be 120, maybe 140 games or something like that.
I wouldn't be, I wouldn't surprise me, but also I could see it going to May. I could see it going to May here too. So I agree with you. I think I'm just throwing that, seeing if it sticks, and if it doesn't, well, it wouldn't surprise me. But, it's going to be weird because usually at the end of March, you're watching whatever's on. You're watching, who's playing on opening day, and, hopefully the weather's looking a little bit better and whatnot. But we don't get that because two sides can't agree on anything, and like you said, rather just jump in a fire and whatnot. So yeah, it's disappointing. So we'll keep in tune on that. Shoot, we haven't even talked about a Twins offseason and what they need to do to get going. I mean, because they haven't had a chance to because of this whole ordeal. So there's that. All right, next one, Voldy.
Looking at the future of professional football, it was announced this past week, actually the week that we were off, the NFL and the XFL have reached a partnership agreement that will focus on creating innovation programs and protecting the health of players, as XFL officials have made clear the collaboration with the NFL for sharing for development purposes, but the alignment is notable given growing number of alternate leagues in the football landscape as well. So basically, in short, the XFL is going to serve as kind of a proving ground development situation for the NFLs. They'll be working hand in hand. And given the fact that the XFL, which will be coming back until next year, is it observe or approve that the XFL is going to serve as a quote-unquote petri dish for the NFL?
I think this is the way to go about it because I think we know that. I mean, you might have a name or two that used to be good in the NFL that just kind of wants to play just because, it's they still love the game, or if they just, want to do something in their free time. I don't know. But I kind of like that because I think it gives these players the opportunity to be able to maybe even get a shot at the NFL. And I think, The Rock, Dwayne Johnson, has done a great job with helping, having that partnership, whereas Vince McMahon and Oliver Luck, I think, who was the commissioner, and they're having that ordeal going on. But having that, partnership, not because, let's be honest, you're not beating the NFL. You're just, if you're the XFL, you're like, oh, we're better than we do this. You're not. It's not gonna happen. It's just give it up. Give it up is all I say. But it's the smart way to go about it. I like how you put it in the ARA, just say use it as a petri dish for the NFL, and I think you might have some really cool stories that come through this. You could have a guy that just doesn't that didn't really have a chance, and he goes to the XFL, tears it up, then all of a sudden he comes to the NFL. perfect example. You could say like a Kurt Warner type of deal here. So that's a possible, possible avenue you could go. So yeah, it's got my stamp of approval. I think that the XFL is going to be good for these players, and also bring back the Battlehawks, baby. That's all I got to say. That's our team right there. So St. Louis Battlehawks, maybe even bringing them Minnesota. Well, we'll see. But yeah, I like it. Stamp of approval. Voldy, what do you think?
I'm probably the only person in the world who thought when this story came out, it's like, what? You can't be helping each other. You're the competition. No, you're not supposed to talk about each other. You operate in your own single worlds. You are the center of the universe. XFL over here, NFL over here. Like, all the cross advertising for like NFL games, like Fox is promoting games on CBS and NBC and ESPN. Like, no, you don't talk about each other. You know you exist, but you don't acknowledge it. Stop doing that. You know, this is the competition. But looking at it overall, I think it's a great idea because they already know the XFL is already on thin ice to begin with. It was any ice for the XFL, to be honest, especially with the whole debacle of them closing operations post-COVID as well. And then the debacle that was the AAF, that made it four or five games or something like that. So they shut their doors down. I would just like to see that come back around too, or any other league to get John Manziel off the couch or out of the club to get him back on the football field. I'd like to see one more shot with him trying to make a comeback of some sorts as well. Just because it'd be hilarious to see. Because you play in the AAF, they play in that fan-controlled league or whatever.
Oh,
a year or so ago. But,
that thing.
I mean, that's awesome. But I think the XFL, when they were going pre-COVID and leading up to it, they definitely had some things the NFL probably took a little bit notice of, and recognizing the fact that this could serve as a creative outlet because, they're drawing a lot of comparisons the way NFL Europe used to be as kind of like a development system for them that a lot of guys came out of. Kurt Warner, he played NFL Europe as well, and then former SMSU football coach Corey Sauter played in NFL Europe too for a little stint in his career as well. So I mean, this is a good way as well. Obviously, the ownership group with Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson and that entire group as well, recognizing an opportunity to see it. And I think if any way for the NFL to get on the good side of some fans and get The Rock involved as well. I mean, obviously he was on the field for the Super Bowl, which I thought was still weird to begin with, but hey, I guess it worked in some regard. I think this is it's got a big stamp of approval from me.
Yeah, I think it would, with everybody. I think he was willing to do things that Vince and Oliver Luck weren't willing to do. Which, it's like, oh, we can do this. We can beat the... No, you're just not. You're not going to do that. So, it's But, let's see. I'm curious to see what they do here. And it's
it would have been very interesting to see if COVID hadn't happened, how the XFL would be now going into... This would be the third season of the XFL coming up, how the first 2 years, 2020 and then 2021, and then, obviously this year too. If Oliver Luck, Vince McMahon would be rolling in it, I don't know if they'd be straight up competing with the NFL, but I think they would provide a nice little levity during the spring of post, Super Bowl for the NFL. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, it's 2023 they're coming back, right? Is it the spring? Does that sound right?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that it is. Yeah.
Okay. So hopefully we see some new things, and doing what. Hopefully they're able to do what they want to do with it.
Yeah, because they were planning on coming back this spring in 2020.
That's right. Yeah.
Because they announced it like in the winter, I think, or like fall or something, that they were going to go to 2023.
Right. I remember that we had it on the show too, so we talked about that briefly. But I just got a message from Cole Munson saying that the Battlehawks are my team too. So. Yeah. Let's go. Let's go Battlehawks.
Although our boy Jordan Tamu is not going to be playing.
That's right.
USFL, as far as
yeah.
I'm aware.
Yeah, he's playing for the USFL. Speaking of which, next one. Voldy.
Well, old meets new, I guess, in this case, and, they're going to be meeting finale in the courtroom as a group of former owners and executives for the defunct USFL are suing Fox Sports and the refunct USFL, if that's a word. I don't know if it is, but I'm making it a word.
Yeah.
And they're going to be the launch of the new spring football league using the same name, the USFL, alleging the new USFL inappropriately using the old league's branding as the complaint was filed in California court on Monday, alleging trademark infringement, false advertising, and false association by the new league, as the group is seeking an injunction to prevent the new league from using any names or logos associated with the defunct league itself. Now, is it absurd or approved that this injunction lawsuit would have any bearing on the upcoming season? And this absurd or approved is the lawsuit from the original USFL owners that will stop the new USFL from launching altogether.
Let me add something to this here.
Okay.
Why would you follow or put up a lawsuit when it's probably not going to last 2 games? That's my thing towards it. Is why are you even suing? I mean, like, you guys shouldn't care, because guess what? You guys went up in flames too. So don't even try to come after this. You know, it doesn't make sense to me. But will it stop? Will the original owners stop the new USFL from launching? It could. I mean, I'm not saying that it will, and I hope that it doesn't. But just because I'm just curious to see what it is. I'm not, let's be honest, I'm not going to sit down on my butt and watch a USFL game. No offense to anybody that's in that league, but I think we picked a team with that too. But let's get to the task at hand here with these owners. You know, they had their due with this, and you know they're like, oh, it's counterfeit, the trademarks, they didn't properly obtain it, blah, 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 blah. Gives a damn. Why would you even care? This was back in 1983, 1983 through 1985. I think I even watched the documentary on that and how that all got defunct, like you said. And yeah, I don't understand it, but I think we took the Pittsburgh Maulers as our team. I believe that's what we did on the Twitter sphere as well. So I guess go Maulers. I don't know, but we'll see. I think it's I mean, I think it's absurd just because that it might not even last that long, and they still want to sue them because they're using the same names and everything like that. Well, why didn't you do it earlier when they started this up, you dingbats? So, whatever. I don't give a damn about it. So, Voldy, what do you think?
I just really hope that this falls the same way as the AAF did, because it showed up with, it started whatever year it was, the start of the playoffs, you're like, wait, there's a spring football league? Literally just putting it up on CBS.
Right.
On the TV, not mentioning it, not saying anything, and it's like, oh, this is happening. There's actual football. It always boggles my mind, the fact that people complain about the spring. It's like, there's no football for another 6 months or something. And it's like, when these spring leagues do happen, it's like, then people don't watch, people don't attend. It's like,
exactly.
Yeah, this is the reason why there isn't any spring football, because it's not a spring sport. It's fall. It's early winter. It's sweating it out in September. It's enjoying the crispness of the fall in September, October. And it's been freezing your rear ends off in November, in December, in January. Heaven forbid your team makes it to February, maybe in a warm climate for a Super Bowl as well. This is what the football is all about. Now, getting back to the lawsuit with the OG USFLers against the new breed of USFLers, the fact that they even diverge from any of the original teams, because all 8 teams are the same 8 teams from the 1980s. 1983 to 1985 is when the original USFL did happen. And it's the fact that no originality whatsoever is going to doom this go-around whatsoever as well, just because it's just, where is the originality to begin with? And obviously, this is just going to be bad from the start. Is it going to stop it? No. I think Fox Sports is going to definitely throw some money to the side of the old owners and executives.
Right.
Let's just hope Donald Trump's not in the fold with this lawsuit, too, because things could get messy in that regard as well. And I think is it going to stop it? No, I think it's completely absurd.
I don't see the point. I don't see the point, but yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I think they could have came up with different names to avoid this thing, which it could have been avoided. But at the same time, it's like, why would these guys even care? I mean, back in the 80s and whatnot, it's just, ridiculous. But, with Fox Sports, I'm sure probably I think they'll come to like a settlement or something like that. I don't know. I think they will. So we're confident that they will. But I'm intrigued. I'm intrigued to see how this is going to pan out. I could see it and it go. I think it'd probably go the way of the AAF. I believe that's what it was. I always think AFF, but no, AAF. But Trent Richardson was in that league too, just as a little tidbit as well.
So was Johnny Manziel.
Yeah, so there you go.
Played for, I think, like Birmingham or something like that. One of those southern teams.
Yeah. Wasn't Ken Sumlin a coach there? I can't remember.
Might have been. He might have been.
Might have been. So we'll look into it. All right. Next one, Voldy.
Well, another story that we're a little late on as well, but definitely
Sure.
deserves a little bit of attention. The feistiness of college basketball seems to be back, and especially with Michigan men's basketball coach JuwanHoward that did have some words with one of the assistant coaches, Joe Krabbenhoft, for Wisconsin, following a 77-63 loss to the Wisconsin Badgers back on February the 21st in Sunday's game. The Big Ten did also come out and suspend the likes of JuwanHoward for the rest of the season and hit him with a $40,000 fine for hitting one of the assistant coaches, and also fined Wisconsin head coach Greg Gard at $10,000 for violating the conference's sportsmanship policy, but not suspended, while Krabbenhoft is not going to be receiving any punishment other than just the fact that he was hit on by one of the Fab Five from the Michigan Wolverines. Knowing the situation overall, is it absurd or approved that should have JuwanHoward been fired for his actions against Wisconsin staff?
I think that's a little extreme. Especially the reason why I say that, saying like he should be fired. I mean, he's definitely. I think with that suspension, I think that was enough. The fine and whatnot, he apologized because I mean, we've all seen the video. I mean, if you saw it, it was kind of like an open like push type of thing. But I mean, if he like really like, knuckled up and just went bam, and possibly knocked him out, tooth falls out, blood, all that fun stuff, or not fun stuff, bad stuff going on, I should say. I misspoke. But
somebody.
Yeah. But it's. I don't think it was enough to have him be fired just because it was one of those tussle type of things. Like it's like guys in training camp that get the heat gets to them, and if someone's holding them, then they get into it. Then other people get into it because it was kind of like a mob because he hit. The guy that he should have been mad at was the coach, for Wisconsin. And, he ended up hitting somebody else unless he said something to him to provoke him. Because he didn't like that. He called a timeout late in the game when they had the game won. But I think, he apologized, and I don't think he deserves to be fired by any means. He says he's truly sorry. He gives his, apology to the players, and then Joe Krabbenhoft too, and his family. So that, I mean, I think he understands, how this is going to go next time. If something like this would happen again, he needs to handle it in a better way. And He didn't in this incident, and I think he said some words, and Wisconsin guys got involved as well. But yeah, I don't think I don't think he deserved to be fired. I think it's absurd that what he did, but I think he didn't deserve to be fired from that. But I think if something like that were to happen again, and he threw a swing, even if he would miss, then you'd probably have to can him, because I mean that there's no room for that, and things get chippy. But when it's between coaches, I mean that rarely happens. Like, that shouldn't be happening. So yeah, I think what he did was absurd, but I don't think he should have been, or I don't think he should be fired for it. So Voldy, what do you think?
No, I don't think he should be fired altogether, too, because if players are going to start getting paid like they did back in the day, they might as well get a little feisty back in the day, too,
Yeah.
especially with head coaches, because this is old school basketball. Am I a fan of grown men striking each other? No. But JuwanHoward is not your typical coach. I mean, he's a guy that played 20 years in the NBA and jumped right into the college basketball landscape as well, following a career as an assistant coach in the NBA, and now getting his feet wet in the college ranks. There's definitely going to be some growing pains with that too, and things are kind of topsy-turvy as of late for them at the Michigan program. But you're going to do something like this, you got to pay the piper on this one. I mean, if we could only talk about the amount of fines and suspensions and everything that Bob Knight had back in the day,
Yeah.
Make JuwanHoward look like
Yep.
a little slap on the wrist. I mean, 40,000 and suspended the rest of the season. Yeah, it's going to hurt right now, especially with now it being looking at the Big Ten tournament coming up here for the Wolverines too, and trying to make themselves in the NCAA tournament. They need all the help they can get. Not
Sure.
having JuwanHoward on the bench is definitely going to hurt them as well. Should he have been fired? No. I think that's completely absurd.
Yeah, I agree. And he was talking about, or when someone made contact with him, he said someone touched me. I think it was very uncalled for them to touch me, as we were verbalizing, communicating with one another. That's what escalated it. So I think just the heat of the moment type of thing. But you can't react the way that he did. He was suspended. He was fined. I mean, like you said, got to pay the piper. So that's kind of how it is. But I think now this rivalry between Michigan and Wisconsin is going to get even more feistier. So we'll see. We'll see how it pans out later on here, especially next year, beyond, and then the Big Ten tournament here. So, all right, last one, Voldy.
Get a look here as well. Of course, now with it being NFL Combine week, the
Yeah.
NFL Scouting Combine had a little bit of some discord last week, with a group of player agents threatening to organize a boycott of key elements of the annual event if its concerns about a COVID bubble for prospects are not being addressed now. And the NFL did send a memo the previous week, so it would have been last Monday, that to draft prospects and their agents, outlining the rules for the combine, including a bubble that would keep prospects from interacting with their personal trainers, doctors, nutritionists, and agents while in Indianapolis. So basically putting them all by themselves against CEOs, reporters, coaches as well, that they're basically the most stressful job interview that they'll probably be a part of.
Mm-hmm.
Now, a group of agents representing 150 of more than the 324 invited prospects started to push back, saying that it would hold its players out of the combine, so holding a boycott of combine drills and interviews, that the league did not relent on those plans. So they wanted them to relax the COVID protocols in order for doctors, nutritionalists, and even personal trainers, along with agents, to be able to interact with their players and clients as
Right.
well. Now, talking about it, obviously we're into Combine Week, and activities getting going with them too. Is it absurd or approved that the agents' boycott of the NFL Combine would affect anything when it came to even the NFL Draft coming up, as well as the upcoming season?
I don't foresee it being, because I mean, this seems like it's a very minor thing because I think it's one of those things where, yeah, you wouldn't be able to interact. I mean, it's just the COVID thing too. I mean, it's them being not being able to, interact with personal trainers, doctors, nutrition, all that stuff. It's like, at the same time, I think, however you feel about the COVID situation and whatnot, I think as a person that believes that you should get vaccinated and whatnot, I mean, I think you should. And I think, a lot of these players are. There's probably some that aren't, and that's fine. But at the same time, I think the NFL needs to relax some of this stuff, though, too. And I think they have. And, granted, I think Omicron has kind of been, and I don't want to say this, and then all of a sudden, we have another spike in a variant or something. Right. But, I mean, I understand from that perspective, but also the perspective of if the agents want to boycott it, and there's been some guys that don't go to the combine, and they go to the draft, and then, they're in, training camp and all that, mini camp, all that stuff, and they're fine. I mean, it's one of those things where I think the combine's good for guys that are trying to up their draft status and whatnot. But with the agents boycotting it and everything like that, I don't think it's going to make much of a big difference because, a lot of these, it gives a chance for a lot of these, especially a lot of new coaches, with new teams, and also GMs to kind of get a look at some of these guys. And, I don't see it being a big issue. And I think the NFL's probably made note of it, but they're not going to be like, they're kind of like, meh, what are you guys going to do? I don't, you'd have to get a big group of people to just say, screw the combine, whatever. So I think it's a little absurd. But at the same time, if it doesn't really matter and players are able to, work out on their own and prove to these, scouts and whatnot, and they go to the pro days too. I mean, there's always the pro days to, show if you've improved, if you did something bad at the combine and you do something good on your pro day, then things could work out in your favor. So I don't think it's that big of an issue. Voldy, what do you think?
No, I think this was just more of a way that the agents can make themselves even more relevant.
Yeah.
A lot of their clients are probably going to do it anyway just because of the fact that they know that they can. And I don't think that this is probably more of a power play move of anything.
Yeah.
Saying like, oh, you're going to do this? Well, we're going to do this. It literally has no bearing on the season because obviously if the players are going to get themselves drafted well, they need to perform well at the combine and their pro days too. So this wasn't going to stop anything. I think it's completely absurd that if it had any bearing on any situation whatsoever.
Yep, I just don't see how it would. I don't see how it would affect anything. It's ridiculous just to think that. They're like, oh, we're going to get a bunch of people, we're going to boycott it, blah, 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 blah. Okay, good luck with that, guys. Let me know how that goes. That's all I got to say. So, we'll see. All right, great job with ARA this week, Voldy, as always. It's time for some Shield shoutouts. We got some awesome Shield shoutouts this week. It's been a week since we've done Shield shoutouts. So, let's get it going with, obviously, some Shield shoutouts.
Shield shoutouts.
All right, Shield, who ya shouting out tonight?
Well, we do have to give a Shield shout-out, of course, to the Dakota State University women's basketball team this past weekend. They captured their second consecutive their NSAA Conference Tournament Championship once again. They won it for the second year in a row. Head coach David Moe, assistant coach Jamal Branco as well. Congratulations, those two guys that have really turned around the program in a short amount of time. The senior girls as well were freshmen when I was calling games for them.
Wow.
And they have come a long, long way in a short amount of time. So congrats and a big shield shout out to the DSU Trojan women's basketball team as they will be looking for hopefully a good seeding in the NAIA National Tournament coming up here before too long as well. I do have to give shield shout out to Hayfield, the Vikings girls basketball team led by former teammate, good friend. Tournament championship. They should say the Gopher Conference regular season title this past week as well. So congratulations, the Hayfield Viking girls, on a great season thus far as they're in the Section 1A tournament as well. In a pretty good seeding as well. So hopefully maybe they make a nice little run this postseason for the Hayfield Vikings. And also got to give a shield shout out to Carl Anthony Towns, the Cat, winning.
Yeah.
Light him up from downtown and take out a whole cast of lethal three-point shooters, but at the end of the day, the Cat did stand tall and win the three-point shooting title this year. That's going to do it for Shield Shoutouts this week.
I love it. Especially with Cat. I mean, shoot. He's a great. I think he's a great big man shooter. He's probably He says he's the greatest big man shooter in the league. I think he's got a point. I really think he's got a point with that. So, great job with Shield Shoutouts this week, Voldy, as always. And we got through episode 99. That's pretty much all I got to say. But one thing before you go is we got merch, people. We've got shirts. We've also have heard good things of the hats, $20, $5 shipping. Talk to me, talk to Voldy, talk to Jimbo. Hey, we love it. I mean, the shirts look pretty. The shirts are the same thing. $20, $5 shipping. You get them fresh and clean. 5 out of 5 stars. Haven't heard one bad review on the shirts and or the hats or any of the merch for one. And then stickers, obviously, we got the small ones, $2. We got the big ones, $3. I know that some people want some, so I'll have to throw out some orders here for you. All right, so not only that, but check out W2 Performance. Will Rattel, www.w2performance.com. He's doing the Haas project. People are loving it. We appreciate Rattel, especially him redeeming himself, obviously, on our 2-year when we had him on last. And special shout out to National Fleet Graphic, Crown Rental, Tyler Knutson for the stickers. Looking awesome as always. Make sure you check out Jack O'Keefe, Jack's Junkyard. Breaking into the League with Sam Gabrielli, Ryan Martin, available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. And then check out our guys, the victorious P.O.D. with Ryan Walters and Jack Vickers, fantasy football show. We're in talks with those guys to get something going. We're excited about it. It's going to be fun. I'm looking forward to it. So, that's going to do it for episode 99. Episode 100, the next time we're going. So, this is a message, a formal message to Skype. Have this fixed. That's all I have to say. Have this fixed so we can have Voldy on and whatnot. None of this breakup BS that we want, okay? We will be in contact. But we had a great show. We made it work. It was fun. So we enjoy you guys for sticking with us through that. So, anywho, episode 100. Let's go. I already got some ideas flowing. So, anyway, remember, folks, keep in the zone.
Thank you for watching MinneZona Sports Live. Join us Wednesdays at 7 p.m. for live show broadcast. And as Voldy likes to say, follow us on all the socials medias.